All right, today we are tackling one of the most powerful but honestly least understood institutions on the planet, the Federal Reserve.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a big question. What if I told you there's a single institution out there that can make the entire stock market skyrocket or totally tank, just by saying a few words?
Yeah, I'm talking about an institution that can change your mortgage rate, directly impact how much you're paying for groceries, and literally send shockwaves through the entire global economy.
You guessed it, we're talking about the Federal Reserve. You know, a lot of people have heard the name, but don't really get what it is or what it does. So that's our mission today. We're going to break this whole thing down nice and simple.
So, first things first, what is the Federal Reserve? Well, at its core, the Fed, that's what everyone calls it, is the central bank of the United States. Okay, but what's a central bank? Think of it as the big boss of a country's money. It's the institution that manages the entire money supply, controls how much it costs to borrow money, interest rates, and it keeps an eye on all the other banks to make sure the system is safe.
Probably the easiest way to think about it is like this. The Fed is the bank of banks. You and I have our local bank, right? Well, our bank has a bank, and that's the Fed.
Okay, so we know what it is, but what does the Fed actually do all day? Well, it pretty much boils down to three main jobs.
You might hear people talk about its dual mandate, and that just means two big goals: keep inflation in check and get as many people employed as possible. But there's a huge third job too, making sure the whole financial system doesn't fall apart. Let's take a look at each one.
Job number one, control inflation. Basically, the Fed tries to keep prices stable so the money in your pocket is worth about the same tomorrow as it is today. No one likes seeing grocery prices go wild, right?
Job number two is maximizing employment. And this is where it gets tricky. I mean, of course, they want everyone who wants a job to have one. But when the job market is too hot, the economy can overheat, and that pushes prices up. So it's this constant, delicate balancing act.
And job three, keeping the financial system stable. Think of the Fed as the economy's firefighter. When a crisis hits, they're the ones who step in as the lender of last resort to pump money into the system and stop everything from collapsing.
So how on earth does the Fed pull off this massive balancing act? Well, it really all comes down to one single, incredibly powerful tool. And that tool is interest rates. It's actually a pretty straightforward cause and effect thing. Check this out. When the Fed raises interest rates, borrowing money gets more expensive for everyone, for businesses, for you, so people and companies spend less, and that slows things down and cools off inflation. But when the Fed lowers rates, the opposite happens. Borrowing gets cheaper, everyone starts spending and investing more, and the economy starts to grow. It's kind of like interest rates are the thermostat for the entire economy. If things are getting too hot, the Fed cranks it up to cool things down. If things are too sluggish, they turn it down to heat things up.
Okay, so this brings up a huge question that a lot of people have. Is the Fed just printing money? Like, are there big machines in a back room somewhere just churning out piles of cash?
Well, yes and no. It's not really about printing physical dollar bills. Mostly, the Fed creates money electronically. It can do this by buying things like government bonds or with fancy tools like quantitative easing, which, put simply, is just a way to pump a whole lot of digital money into the economy. The end result is the same: more money in the financial system created with a few keystrokes.
All right, so we get how the Fed steers the U.S. economy. But why does the rest of the world care so much? I mean, why is a banker in London or an investor in Tokyo listening to every single word the Fed chair says?
The reason is actually pretty simple. The U.S. dollar is the king. It's the world's reserve currency. That means most international business is done in dollars. So when the Fed messes with U.S. interest rates, it's not just an American issue. It sends massive shockwaves through global markets, currency values, everything, everywhere.
So, to really bring this all home, from inflation here to markets all over the world, let's use one last analogy. I want you to picture the entire economy as a car.
In this car, the Federal Reserve is sitting in the driver's seat. When they lower interest rates, it's like they're stepping on the gas pedal. Vroom! The economy speeds up, and we get growth. And when they raise interest rates, well, that's them hitting the brakes. It slows everything down to keep inflation from getting out of control.
But here's the real challenge, right? If you floor the gas pedal, you could overheat the engine. That's runaway inflation. But if you slam on the brakes too hard, you could stall out completely, and that's a recession. So the Fed's entire job is this constant, nerve-wracking search for that perfect, smooth ride.
So let's put it all together in one final definition. The Federal Reserve is the U.S. central bank. It manages our money, controls interest rates, and keeps the whole financial system from collapsing, all while trying to hit that nearly impossible sweet spot between controlling inflation and making sure people have jobs.
And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. The Fed's whole mission is to create balance, right? A nice, smooth economic ride. But when you think about it, with so many crazy, unpredictable things happening all the time, can one single institution really steer not just the massive U.S. economy, but pretty much the entire global economy? It's a huge question, and definitely something worth thinking about.